Welcome to the deep dive. Ever wonder what really makes us happy? Not just those fleeting moments. Today, we're digging into the science of well-being using some fascinating insights from Self-Sensei.
Yeah.
Our mission is to get past the surface and understand what truly contributes to a lasting sense of happiness for you.
And for you, the listener, someone who's likely looking for, let's say, practical ways to feel happier and understand, why certain things work, this deep dive is, well, it's your shortcut.
A shortcut. I like that.
We've sorted through the research to bring you the key ideas that can actually make a difference.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. What does happiness even mean in the world of science?
Right.
Forget those fuzzy feelings for a second. Researchers often talk about something called subjective well-being, or SWB.
Exactly. SWB is basically how you experience and evaluate your own life. It's not about being, ecstatic all the time, but more about a consistent sense that things are going well. What's interesting is that it's a mix of how you think, like being satisfied with your life, and how you feel.
How you feel?
Yeah, experiencing positive emotions more often than negative ones. And it's influenced by both what's happening inside you, like your personality, and what's around you, like your community. It's not just a good feeling either. Studies show that higher SWB is linked to better success, health, and stronger relationships down the line.
That makes sense. So how do scientists actually measure something as, personal as how we feel about our lives?
Good question.
It's not like they can just peek inside our heads.
Right. The main way is through surveys where you tell researchers how satisfied you are with different areas of your life and how you've been feeling.
Okay.
But it's not just based on what you say. Scientists also look at reports from people who know you well.
Oh, interesting.
And even at biological markers, like how strong your immune system is, or say activity in certain brain regions associated with positive emotions. This helps to, confirm that SWB is more than just saying, I'm happy.
Interesting. So there's real science behind it. Now, our sources also talk about different flavors of happiness. Hedonic and eudaimonic. Sounds a bit like we're ordering happiness off a menu.
In a way we are, yeah. Hedonic happiness is what most of us think of as feeling good pleasure, enjoyment, comfort, maximizing those good vibes and minimizing the bad ones.
So the pleasant life.
Exactly. Think of it as the pleasant life. It's all about those immediate feel-good moments.
Got it. So that's like the instant gratification stuff, the delicious treat, a funny movie, a relaxing massage.
Precisely.
That's the other flavor, eudaimonic happiness.
Eudaimonic happiness is, well, it's less about those fleeting good feelings and more about a deeper sense of fulfillment. That comes from living a meaningful life. It's about flourishing, growing as a person, living in line with your values, having a purpose, and contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Okay.
This is often called the meaningful life. If we connect this, it's about that deeper satisfaction you get from living well, not just, feeling good.
So one's the short-term buzz and the other is the long-term satisfaction. Can you have both, or do you have to pick a side?
You can definitely have both. And, a truly rich life often includes a blend of both.
That's good to hear.
You might really enjoy your morning coffee, that's hedonic, and also feel a deep sense of purpose from your volunteer work, which is eudaimonic.
Right.
However, if you focus only on hedonic pleasures, you might run into something called the hedonic treadmill.
Uh-oh. Sounds like I'm going to fall off. What's that all about?
The hedonic treadmill is our tendency to get used to good things, that initial excitement you feel about a new phone or a pay raise. It fades over time as it becomes your new normal, and you often sort of drift back to your baseline level of happiness. So constantly chasing external pleasures might give you little boosts, but it doesn't usually lead to a lasting increase in your overall happiness. It's like running on a treadmill. You keep moving, but you don't actually go anywhere in terms of sustained happiness.
That totally explains why that new gadget I bought last month isn't making me as happy now.
Exactly.
So is that deeper eudaimonic happiness more sustainable then?
It tends to be, yeah. Because it's rooted in those internal goals like personal growth and purpose, it's less affected by that, getting used to things phenomenon.
I see.
These kinds of pursuits are ongoing and tied to your core values, not just those temporary external hits.
This is really making sense. Now, our Self-Sensei resources also introduce this PERMA model. It sounds like a recipe for happiness.
Not a recipe exactly, but it is a well-regarded theory of well-being developed by Martin Seligman. PERMA is an acronym for 5 key elements that contribute to a flourishing life:
5 elements.
positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. What's interesting here is that these aren't, separate ingredients. They all work together.
Okay, let's break it down.
Mm.
P is for positive emotion, like joy and gratitude that fits with the hedonic side.
It does, yeah.
What about E?
E is for engagement, that feeling of being totally absorbed in what you're doing, often called flow.
Flow, right.
It's when you're using your strengths to tackle a challenge that's just right for your skill level, and you kind of lose track of time.
Oh, yeah.
Think about a hobby you're really into. You get so focused, everything else just sort of disappears.
I know that feeling. Hours can just PFT, vanish. What's next, R?
R stands for relationships, those positive, supportive, and meaningful connections you have with other people.
Crucial.
Strong relationships are like the bedrock of our well-being.
Absolutely. I always feel better after spending time with people I care about. And M.
M is for bay, meaning that sense of belonging to and serving something bigger than yourself.
Bigger than yourself.
This could be your faith, your community work, or even your dedication to your family. It's about having a sense of purpose that goes, beyond just your own needs.
That definitely ties into that eudaimonic happiness, having a why in your life. And finally, A.
A is for accomplishment or achievement. It's that internal drive to get better at things, to feel competent, and to reach goals, even if it's hard work. That sense of achievement, of mastering something, is a key part of a fulfilling life. If we connect this, it shows that putting in effort in achieving things for their own sake, well, it adds to our overall well-being.
So it's not just about feeling good all the time. It's about being engaged in what we do, connecting with others, having a purpose, and achieving things too.
That's it.
And these are all supported by our character strengths, right?
Exactly. Seligman identifies 24 character strengths, things like kindness, curiosity, and perseverance as the foundation for these 5 elements.
24. Wow.
When you use your strength, you're more likely to experience positive emotions, become deeply engaged in activities, find more meaning in what you do, build stronger relationships, and feel a greater sense of accomplishment.
It sounds like PERMA gives us a more complete picture of happiness than just, focusing on how we feel day to day. It's about living a good life in a broader sense.
Precisely. It's a more holistic view, looking at both those internal feelings and the more outward aspects of a well-lived life.
Right.
And it's also really practical, giving us different areas we can focus on if we want to, boost our overall well-being.
Okay, so we've got a good grasp of what happiness is from a scientific standpoint. Now let's get into what actually makes it happen. Our Self-Sensei material talks a lot about the power of our mindset. How do our beliefs about ourselves and the world actually shape our happiness levels?
What's really interesting here is that our brains aren't just, recording what happens to us. They're actively interpreting it.
Interpreting it.
And that interpretation has a huge impact on our happiness. Our mindset, those underlying beliefs and attitudes we hold, acts like a filter through which we see and respond to everything, including, well, things that affect our well-being.
The sources mention the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. A fixed mindset is the belief that your abilities and talents are pretty much, set from birth. You either have them or you don't.
Okay.
People with this mindset tend to avoid challenges because they're afraid of failing. They give up easily when things get tough, and they can feel threatened by other people's successes.
Right.
On the flip side, a growth mindset is the belief that you can develop your abilities through effort, learning, and persistence.
So, more flexible?
Exactly. People with this mindset embrace challenges, see setbacks as opportunities to learn, and are inspired by the success of others. If we connect this, research shows that having a growth mindset is linked to greater resilience and a stronger drive to engage in activities that boost our health and happiness.
That totally resonates. If you believe you can improve, you're way more likely to actually try and stick with things, even when it's hard. The article also talks about something called a stress mindset. I always just thought stress was, well, always a bad thing.
That's a really common way to think about it. But the stress mindset is about your underlying beliefs about stress itself, whether you see it as harmful or potentially even helpful.
Helpful.
Yeah, a stress is debilitating mindset makes you believe that stress is inherently damaging and something to be avoided at all costs. But a stress is enhancing mindset involves believing that stress can actually have positive effects, like helping you to grow, focus, and become more resilient. What's fascinating is that people who hold this stress is enhancing belief tend to report greater life satisfaction and fewer symptoms of things like, depression and anxiety.
Wow, that's a real shift in how I usually think about stress.
Yeah.
So just believing that stress can be good for you can actually make it, like, less harmful.
The research suggests that it can. Yeah. Even simple exercises aimed at helping people shift their stress mindset have shown positive results.
Hmm.
But the key seems to be really believing it deep down so it consistently affects how you react to stressful situations. It's not just about saying stress is good. It's about truly changing how you see and respond to it.
This whole idea of mindset is really powerful. It sounds like changing what we believe can actually change how we experience the world and our happiness within it.
It really can.
Now, let's talk about something a bit more concrete. Gratitude. I know I feel better when I appreciate things, but is there, like, real science backing up the benefits of being thankful?
Absolutely. Gratitude, that feeling of recognizing and appreciating the good things in your life, has been shown to have significant and lasting effects on both your mental and physical well-being.
Lasting effects.
It's not just a fleeting good feeling. It can actually, change your brain.
Change my brain. How does that work?
Well, studies have linked regularly practicing gratitude to improve communication along neural pathways in the brain,
Go ahead.
which is a key aspect of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to, reorganize itself. Gratitude practices can also trigger the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine, which is linked to pleasure and reward, and serotonin, which plays a big role in regulating mood.
Dopamine and serotonin, right?
What's also interesting is that gratitude has been shown to lower levels of cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, helping to calm your nervous system.
So it's like a natural mood booster and stress reliever all in one go.
Precisely, and it goes even deeper. Brain imaging studies show that feeling grateful activates areas like the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, which is involved in higher level thinking, emotional regulation, and empathy. This suggests that gratitude isn't just a superficial emotion, it engages some pretty important cognitive functions.
The article mentions it can also restructure cognitive processes. What does that mean in plain English?
It means that by actively focusing on what you're thankful for, you can sort of train your brain to pay more attention to positive experiences and less to negative ones.
Like a filter.
Exactly. It helps to counteract our natural tendency to focus on the negative, leading to a more optimistic outlook. It's like you're actively rewiring your brain to see the glass as half full.
That's a powerful idea. And I've also heard that being grateful can actually, like, improve your relationships with people.
It absolutely can, yeah. When you express appreciation, it makes others feel valued and strengthens the bonds between people.
Makes sense.
Research even suggests that gratitude is a key ingredient in happy marriages and overall relationship satisfaction. It's a two-way street. When you show gratitude, it not only benefits the other person, but also reinforces your own positive feelings and your connection with them.
Okay, so mindset and gratitude seem like really key internal ingredients for happiness. What about finding a sense of purpose in life? I know people talk about it a lot, but how does it actually impact our well-being on a scientific level?
Having a sense of purpose, that deep-seated feeling that your life has meaning and direction and that you're contributing to something beyond yourself, is really a cornerstone of that eudaimonic well-being we talked about earlier.
A meaningful life.
Exactly. It provides that fundamental why for your life. If we connect this, research consistently shows that having a strong sense of purpose is linked to significant psychological benefits,
Such as?
including a lower risk of depression and anxiety, increased resilience in the face of challenges, and a greater overall satisfaction with life.
So it's not just a nice philosophical idea. It has real, tangible mental health benefits.
Absolutely. And the impact extends to our physical health as well. Studies have linked a strong sense of purpose to a longer lifespan, better sleep quality, a stronger immune system, lower levels of stress hormones, and even better cognitive function as we age.
Wow.
It's also associated with lower levels of inflammation and a healthier overall biological state. What's really striking is how deeply this sense of meaning can affect our physical well-being.
Wow. That's incredible. How does having a purpose, translate into those physical health benefits?
One way is through its influence on our behaviors. When you feel like your life has meaning, you often have a greater will to live, as they say,
Hmm.
and a stronger motivation to engage in healthy habits even when they're not easy. You're more likely to invest in your health because you want to be around and able to pursue those things that give your life meaning.
That makes perfect sense. If you feel like what you're doing matters, you're probably more motivated to take care of yourself so you can keep doing it.
Precisely.
How do people actually go about finding their realness? It sounds like a pretty big question.
It is a very personal journey. It often starts with taking some time to, reflect on your core values, what's truly important to you in life.
Self-reflection, okay.
Then it's about looking at whether your current actions and goals align with those values. Trying new things, volunteering your time, or getting involved in activities that resonate with you can help you uncover or clarify your sense of purpose.
So it's an active search.
It is. And it's also important to remember that your purpose doesn't have to be some grand, world-changing mission. It can be found in everyday things that are deeply meaningful to you, like raising your family, excelling in your work, or creating art. And it's something that can, evolve over time.
That's reassuring. It doesn't have to be this huge, dramatic revelation. Now, another concept that came up in our sources is flow and engagement.
Yes, flow.
I know when I'm really focused on something I enjoy, time just seems to disappear. Is that what they're talking about?
That's exactly it. Flow, a term coined by psychologist Milisix et Mihaly, is that state of being completely absorbed and deeply focused on an activity,
Right.
where you lose self-consciousness and your sense of time seems to, warp. It's a key part of the engagement element in that PERMA model.
What are some of the telltale signs that you're in a state of flow?
Typically, there are clear goals associated with the activity. You receive immediate feedback on how you're doing, and there's a good balance between how challenging the activity is and your skill level in doing it.
Challenge and skill, okay.
You experience intense concentration, a sense of control over what you're doing, a merging of your actions and your awareness, and the activity itself becomes intrinsically rewarding. You do it for the sheer joy of it.
It almost sounds a bit like meditation in motion. Does being in this state of flow actually contribute to our happiness levels? Because sometimes when I'm really focused, I'm not necessarily feeling this, intense burst of joy at that exact moment.
That's a really insightful point. Often, the real happiness from flow comes, after the fact.
Afterwards.
While you're in that deeply focused state, you might not be experiencing intense euphoria, but the experience provides a profound sense of satisfaction, competence, and personal growth. The pleasure and the lasting feeling of fulfillment often come after you've completed the activity or mastered a new skill.
So it's more about that feeling of accomplishment and growth that comes from being fully engaged in something meaningful.
Exactly.
How can we cultivate more of these flow states in our own lives?
It involves actively seeking out activities that provide that optimal balance between challenge and your current skill level.
The sweet spot.
Precisely. If something is too easy, you'll likely get bored. If it's too difficult, you'll probably get frustrated. Flow tends to happen in that sweet spot in between. Also, identifying and using your own unique character strengths can often lead you to activities that are more likely to induce flow.
So play to your strengths.
It's really about finding those challenging yet meaningful pursuits that completely grab your attention and allow you to really, stretch your abilities.
Okay, so finding that right level of challenge and tapping into our natural strengths can help us experience more of that engaging flow state. Now, life isn't always smooth sailing. We all hit bumps in the road. Our self-sensei material also talks about resilience and adaptation. How do these concepts play into our long-term well-being?
Resilience is essentially our ability to, bounce back from tough times, to adapt well when we face adversity.
Bouncing back.
Closely related to this is hedonic adaptation, which we touched on earlier, that tendency we have to return to a relatively stable baseline level of happiness after both positive and negative events.
Right, the treadmill?
Exactly. Think about it. You might be thrilled about a new job at first, but after a while, it just becomes your normal routine. That's adaptation in action.
So we kind of get used to things, whether they're good or bad. How does resilience factor into that process?
Well, while adaptation is a natural human process, resilience influences just how quickly and effectively we navigate that process, especially after negative experiences. Things like having strong social support, maintaining a positive mindset, developing healthy coping skills, having a clear sense of purpose, and even being able to find meaning in difficult experiences all contribute to resilience.
A lot of factors there.
These factors help us to, weather those storms and adapt in a healthier way.
It sounds like understanding these concepts can help us have more realistic expectations about our own happiness.
Definitely.
Like, we won't be on cloud nine all the time, and bad times won't feel like they'll last forever.
Exactly. It helps us avoid what's sometimes called the arrival fallacy.
The what?
The arrival fallacy, the mistaken belief that reaching a certain goal will bring us permanent happiness or that a setback will lead to never-ending misery.
Right.
Recognizing that we humans are adaptive beings and that we can build our resilience encourages us to focus on developing those inner strengths rather than just, chasing external circumstances.
This has been a really fascinating look at the internal factors that contribute to our happiness.
Mhm.
But our self-sensei resources also delve into the external world and how that impacts our well-being. Let's start with something that seems pretty fundamental: social connections.
What's really striking is how consistently research shows that both the number and the quality of our social connections are incredibly powerful predictors of our overall health and well-being,
Powerful.
even how long we live. Landmark studies have really emphasized that good relationships keep us not only happier, but also healthier. Social connection isn't just a, nice to have, it's a fundamental human need.
So it's not just about having a huge number of followers online then.
Precisely. It's about having those meaningful relationships where you feel genuinely supported, understood, and can trust others,
Quality over quantity.
as opposed to relationships that are stressful or full of conflict. People with more social connections and supportive relationships tend to have better mental and physical health. They're more likely to engage in healthy behaviors, and they even tend to live longer.
That's a really significant impact. How do our relationships actually affect us on such a deep level?
Well, they provide us with social support, whether it's emotional comfort, practical help, or even just information and advice.
All kinds of support.
They can also positively influence our behaviors, and they foster a sense of belonging, purpose, and control over our lives. On a physiological level, positive social interactions can actually have beneficial effects on our immune system, our hormone levels, and our cardiovascular system, potentially by helping to, buffer the negative effects of chronic stress.
It really sounds like we're wired to be social creatures, and our well-being is deeply intertwined with these connections.
Absolutely.
Now, what happens when those connections are missing or weak? The material talks about the very real impact of loneliness.
Loneliness, yes. That distressing feeling of being socially isolated or not having the kind of connections you desire is increasingly being recognized as a major public health issue.
A public health issue.
It's not just about being physically alone, it's that subjective feeling of disconnection that's really harmful. And the consequences for both our physical and mental health can be, well, quite severe.
Severe. In what ways?
Research has shown that chronic loneliness can significantly increase your risk of serious conditions like heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, and even metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
Psychologically, it's strongly linked to increased rates of depression, anxiety, and chronic stress. Alarmingly, some studies even suggest that the risk of dying prematurely associated with chronic loneliness is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being obese.
That's a really stark comparison. What's actually going on in the body when someone is experiencing chronic loneliness?
Neurobiologically, loneliness seems to activate the same pain centers in the brain as, say, physical injury.
Pain centers, really.
Yeah. It also disrupts the body's stress response system, leading to dysregulation of cortisol levels. People who are chronically lonely often show elevated markers of inflammation, impaired immune function, disrupted sleep patterns, and even an accelerated rate of cognitive decline. It's a profound form of physiological stress on the body.
It sounds like loneliness isn't just a sad feeling, it's a serious threat to our health.
It really is.
The article mentions that it's particularly prevalent among young adults.
That's a really concerning trend that's been highlighted in the World Happiness Report. A significant and growing number of young adults report feeling like they lack close social support
No one to count on.
and have no one they can really count on. Given the long-term benefits of positive social integration early in life, this is a worrying development for future well-being across the board.
This really underscores how crucial it is to actively nurture our social connections. How does our brain actually support these social bonds on a biological level?
Our brains are really wired for social interaction. We have what's called a social brain network, which includes specific regions that are specialized for processing social information,
Like what?
like understanding emotions and intentions. And then we have mirror neurons that allow us to sort of, simulate other people's experiences in our own minds, which helps foster empathy.
Mirror neurons. Fascinating.
But it's really the release of certain neurochemicals that drives that rewarding feeling we get from connection.
Like which ones?
Think of oxytocin, often referred to as the bonding hormone. It's released during things like hugging and positive physical contact, and it promotes feelings of trust and attachment.
Oxytocin, got it.
Dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, is released during positive social interactions, making us want to connect more. Serotonin helps to regulate our mood within relationships, and endorphins, those natural mood boosters, can be released during shared enjoyable activities. It's this whole biochemical cocktail that makes social interaction feel good and reinforces those important bonds.
So when we connect with others, we're literally fueling our brain systems that support well-being. That's amazing.
It is.
Now, our Self-Sensei material also talks about the role of community and contribution. How does helping others actually impact our own happiness levels?
Engaging with your community, whether it's through volunteering your time or even just through pro-social spending, meaning spending money on others rather than yourself, has been consistently linked to increased life satisfaction and a greater overall sense of fulfillment.
What are some of the specific ways it benefits us?
Volunteering, for example, offers direct opportunities for social connection, which we know is so important.
Right.
It can also boost your self-confidence and self-esteem, and some research even suggests it can help to combat feelings of depression. Interestingly, studies have even found potential physical health benefits, such as lower mortality rates among regular volunteers.
Lower mortality, that's significant.
What's really striking is the happiness effect. One study found that the increase in happiness from volunteering just once a week was comparable to getting a significant increase in income.
Wow, that really puts things in perspective. So giving back to others can be as rewarding for our own happiness as, say, getting a raise at work.
In terms of your subjective well-being, it certainly can be. Contributing to the well-being of others often aligns with our deeper sense of purpose, tapping into that eudaimonic happiness we discussed.
That makes sense.
It gives us a feeling of making a positive difference in the world, which is intrinsically fulfilling. And with pro-social spending, research indicates that using your financial resources to benefit others can actually bring you more lasting happiness than spending that same money on yourself.
So it's a win-win.
It's a bit of a double win. You're helping others and boosting your own well-being at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense. Now let's tackle a big one that I think is on everyone's mind. Money and happiness.
The big question.
It's a question we all wonder about. What does the science actually have to say about the relationship between the two?
The relationship between money and happiness is definitely complex and, well, more nuanced than we often think.
I can imagine.
A really foundational point is that having enough money to meet your basic needs, things like food, housing, and healthcare, is absolutely crucial for your well-being. Financial insecurity can create significant stress and definitely detract from happiness.
Basic needs first.
Exactly. However, once you reach a level of financial security where your basic needs are comfortably met, the connection between more money and more happiness becomes, shall we say, less straightforward.
I've heard that there's a certain income level where making more money doesn't really make you any happier. Is that generally true according to research?
Earlier research did suggest that emotional well-being might tend to sort of level off around a certain income threshold.
A plateau.
However, more recent and extensive studies have actually challenged that idea, suggesting that for many people, happiness might continue to rise with income, even beyond that initial threshold.
Oh, interesting.
That being said, there does seem to be a point of diminishing returns. Each additional dollar tends to have a smaller impact on your happiness as your income increases. And what's really interesting is that your baseline level of well-being can actually influence how much additional income affects your happiness.
Not so.
For people who are already quite happy, the positive association with more income might even accelerate above a certain point.
So it's not a simple yes or no answer. What about that old saying, money can't buy happiness? Is there any truth to that?
Well, while it's not the sole ingredient for happiness, having financial security can certainly help to reduce stress and provide more opportunities in life.
True.
However, research consistently shows that materialism, placing a very high value on acquiring money and possessions, is often negatively correlated with overall happiness.
Materialism isn't the key then.
It seems that the constant pursuit of money for its own sake and valuing it above other important things like meaningful relationships and personal growth can actually be detrimental to your well-being. Ultimately, it seems that how you use your money, particularly for achieving financial security and for investing in experiences, tends to matter more for your happiness than just the total amount you accumulate.
That leads perfectly into our next point, the difference between spending money on experiences versus material possessions.
Yes, a great distinction.
I always feel like the memories I make from trips or events are more valuable than things I've bought. Is there a psychological reason for that?
Absolutely. There's a well-documented experiential advantage. Spending money on experiences like travel, concerts, or learning a new skill tends to bring more lasting happiness than buying material possessions.
Lasting happiness.
There are several key reasons for this. First, our memories of experiences often tend to improve over time, becoming even more positive as we recall them.
Rose-tinted glasses, maybe?
Something like that. Second, experiences are much more closely linked to our sense of self and our identity. Third, experiences tend to be less prone to those social comparisons that can often diminish the joy we get from material goods.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. And perhaps most importantly, experiences often better meet our fundamental psychological needs, particularly the need for social connection, as many experiences are shared with other people.
That makes so much sense. I rarely compare my travel experiences to anyone else's, but I definitely find myself comparing my phone or my car.
Precisely. And experiences are also just generally easier and more enjoyable to talk about and share with others, which further strengthens those social bonds.
Good point.
It's worth noting, though, that sometimes material purchases can have experiential qualities, like a musical instrument you learn to play or a game you enjoy playing with friends. So thinking about how a purchase will be used and whether it will facilitate positive experiences can help you align your spending with your well-being.
This has been a really eye-opening look at how the external world shapes our happiness. Now, let's shift gears one more time and talk about our biological blueprint.
Our biology, yes.
How much of our happiness is actually determined by our genes?
That's a question that researchers have explored extensively through studies, particularly twin studies.
Twin studies, right?
These studies suggest that our genetics do account for a significant portion of the individual differences we see in people's reported levels of happiness, somewhere in the range of about 30 to 40%.
30 to 40%.
For life satisfaction specifically, the heritability is estimated to be around 32%. What's really important to understand, though, is that while there's definitely a genetic component, it's not deterministic. It's not like there's a single happiness gene that dictates how happy you're going to be.
So if genetics account for that much, what makes up the other 60 to 70%?
The remaining majority is influenced by a combination of environmental factors, the world around us, our experiences, and crucially, our intentional activities.
Intentional activities.
These are the choices we make and the things we actively do that can impact our well-being. This is really empowering because it means we have a significant degree of control over our own happiness, regardless of our genetic starting point.
That's good news.
And it's also important to remember that there are complex interactions between our genes and our environment. Our environment can actually influence how those genes related to well-being are expressed.
So our genes might give us a bit of a starting point, but it's our choices and our surroundings that really shape our happiness in the long run.
That's a great way to put it.
Now, our sources also talk about the brain's happy chemicals. That sounds pretty intriguing.
These are the neurotransmitters and hormones in our brain that play incredibly important roles in regulating our moods and emotions.
The chemical messengers.
Exactly. Think of dopamine, that's often called the reward molecule, and it's released when we achieve something or experience pleasure. Serotonin helps to regulate our mood and feelings of well-being. Endorphins act as natural pain relievers and can also create feelings of euphoria.
Endorphins, like from exercise.
Precisely. Oxytocin is that bonding hormone that fosters feelings of connection and trust. GABA has a calming and anti-anxiety effect, and even endocannabinoids contribute to feelings of relaxation and well-being. What's fascinating is that happiness isn't caused by just one of these chemicals. It's a really complex interplay of all these different systems working together.
So different kinds of activities can actually target and influence these different pathways in our brain.
Exactly. Setting a challenging goal and then achieving it can give you a boost of dopamine. Engaging in physical exercise can release endorphins and support healthy serotonin levels.
Makes sense.
Spending quality time with loved ones and engaging in physical affection can elevate oxytocin. Practicing mindfulness and meditation can enhance GABA activity. By understanding how different activities affect these chemical messengers in our brain, we can be more intentional about engaging in behaviors that support a more positive emotional state.
It's almost like having a natural pharmacy. right inside our own brains.
In a way, yes.
Now, it's not just about what's going on in our brains, is it? Our self-sensei material also touches on the crucial body-mind connection.
Absolutely. Our physical health and our mental and emotional well-being are so deeply interconnected that you really can't separate them.
They go hand in hand.
Taking good care of your body is absolutely fundamental to supporting your happiness. Think about exercise. It's a fantastic mood booster, releasing endorphins and helping us to manage stress more effectively. Getting enough good quality sleep is absolutely essential for both our physical and mental restoration, and it has a huge impact on our daily mood and cognitive function. And eating a balanced nutritional diet provides the necessary building blocks for our brain and body to function optimally, influencing our energy levels and even our risk of developing mood disorders. It's a really holistic system.
So if we want to be happier, we can't just focus on our thoughts and feelings. We really need to be taking care of our physical bodies as well.
That's key.
And it seems like even our surrounding environment plays a significant role, particularly being out in nature.
That's absolutely right. There's a growing body of compelling research that highlights the significant psychological benefits of spending time in natural green spaces.
Green spaces.
Even relatively short exposures to nature have been shown to reduce levels of stress hormones like cortisol, improve our overall mood, and enhance our cognitive functions, particularly attention and memory.
Just a short time helps.
It can. It can also increase feelings of positive emotions and self-esteem, and it's been shown to reduce rumination, that cycle of negative overthinking. It's almost like nature has a naturally nurturing effect on our minds.
It's really amazing how even just a walk in a park can have such a noticeable impact on how we feel.
It
It's
is.
like our bodies and minds are inherently designed to connect with the natural world. Now, before we wrap things up, our self-sensei material has a really helpful section on debunking some common myths about happiness. Can we touch on a few of those?
Absolutely. It's really important to separate fact from fiction when it comes to understanding happiness. One common myth is that happiness is a constant state of pure bliss.
Right, not always euphoric.
The truth is that experiencing a full range of emotions, even those we might consider negative, is actually linked to better overall health and resilience. It's more about having a rich and diverse emotional landscape.
Mo diversity, they call it.
Exactly. Another myth is that our external circumstances, things like wealth or our job title, are the primary drivers of our happiness. But research consistently shows that our internal states and how we choose to perceive and react to things play a much larger role.
Internal focus.
And then there's the idea that you're either born happy or you're not. While genetics do play a part, as we've discussed, our happiness is definitely something that can be actively cultivated and improved.
Those are really good ones to clear up. What about the common belief that material possessions will lead to lasting happiness?
That's a big one, and as we've talked about, we tend to adapt to material possessions relatively quickly, and the initial happiness boost they provide is often quite temporary.
The hedonic treadmill again.
Precisely. Investing in experiences and focusing on personal growth tend to offer much more enduring feelings of fulfillment. And then there's the myth that getting into a romantic relationship or getting married will automatically make you happy.
The magic bullet relationship.
While good, supportive relationships are absolutely crucial for well-being, it's the quality of those relationships and your individual baseline level of happiness that matter more than just your relationship status itself. Finally, happiness isn't just a solitary individual pursuit. Our own well-being is deeply connected to the happiness and well-being of those around us and our broader community.
These are all really important points to keep in mind. It really shifts the focus away from just chasing external things or feeling like we're stuck with a certain level of happiness, and more towards understanding that we actually have quite a bit of agency in shaping our own well-being. And finally, our self-sensei material highlights the importance of actively cultivating well-being through evidence-based strategies.
Yes, these are often referred to as positive psychology interventions, or PPIs. They are essentially intentional, scientifically proven activities that are designed to enhance our positive feelings, thoughts, and behaviors.
APIs.
Extensive reviews of the research have shown that PPIs can be really effective in increasing overall happiness, life satisfaction, and optimism, while also reducing negative emotions like anxiety and depression.
Are there many different kinds of these interventions that people can try?
Absolutely. There's a wide range of them, and their effectiveness can vary somewhat depending on individual factors like your current level of well-being, the specific format and duration of the intervention, and even your cultural background.
Find what works for you.
Exactly. But some of the most common and well-supported PPIs include regularly practicing gratitude, engaging in mindfulness, and savoring positive experiences, performing acts of kindness for others, identifying and actively using your personal character strengths, setting and pursuing meaningful goals, intentionally nurturing your social relationships, practicing optimistic thinking, and even practicing forgiveness. The key is to find the strategies that really resonate with you personally and to make a consistent effort to incorporate them into your daily life.
So it's really about actively working on our own well-being using these proven techniques, rather than just passively hoping to stumble upon happiness one day.
That's the core idea.
This has been such a comprehensive and insightful deep dive into the science of happiness. What are some of the absolute key takeaways that you'd really want our listener to remember from our conversation today?
In terms of those internal psychological keys to lasting well-being, really remember the power of cultivating a growth-oriented mindset and even viewing stress in a more positive light.
Mindset is huge.
Make a conscious effort to practice gratitude regularly. It has profound and wide-ranging benefits. Take the time to explore and connect with your sense of purpose and meaning in life. It's fundamental for both mental and physical health.
Purpose and meaning. Got it.
Actively seek out those engaging flow experiences by challenging yourself in meaningful ways. And remember that building your resilience will help you navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life.
And when it comes to the external factors that influence our happiness,
prioritize nurturing your social connections. Both the number of connections and, even more importantly, their quality are vital.
connections, absolutely.
Be really aware of the negative impact of loneliness and take steps to address any feelings of disconnection. Understand the biological basis of our need for social connection and actively work on strengthening those bonds.
Nurture those bonds.
Find ways to engage with your community and contribute to the well-being of others. Understand the nuanced relationship between money and happiness, focusing on financial security and investing in experiences rather than just accumulating wealth. And finally, remember the lasting benefits of choosing experiences over material possessions.
And on the biological front of happiness,
Recognize that while your genes do play a role, they absolutely do not dictate your happiness level.
not deterministic.
Understand the important roles of your brain's various happy chemicals and how your behaviors can influence them. Embrace the strong connection between your mind and body by prioritizing exercise, sleep, and a healthy diet.
Body-mind connection. Yes.
And don't underestimate the powerful psychological benefits of spending time in nature. Finally, be mindful of those common myths about happiness that can steer you in the wrong direction, and instead focus on the scientific truths we've discussed.
That's a fantastic and really helpful summary. So for you, our listener, think about just one small, evidence-based strategy that we've talked about today that you could realistically incorporate into your daily life starting right now.
Just one small step.
And maybe consider how focusing on the ongoing process of cultivating your well-being rather than just on achieving some abstract outcome of being happy might just fundamentally shift your entire perspective on what a truly fulfilling life looks like. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.